Welcome to the Prosperity Profiles Podcast, sponsored by Prosperity Profilers, LLC. They'll help you look prosperous, feel prosperous, and be prosperous. We hope you listen often, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. Now here's your host, four-time #1 best-selling author, speaker, and business coach, Holly Porter.
Hey everyone, welcome again to another day at the podcast. We are so glad that you are here joining us. As of course, I have another fabulous guest who is also an author in the 40/40 Rules book, but volume 2, and that will be launching November 29, 2018. So as we are recording this before, we have not launched, and I have one of the authors in there, and her name is Annette Judd. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Holly. Hi, everyone.
So happy to have you here. So Annette is a real estate agent now. That's not where she started. You know, we all have the story, right? And so she was an air traffic controller, right?
Yeah, I was.
That was what I hear one of the highest stress jobs. That and a burn, like when people get burn unit. I've heard those are like the two highest stress jobs. Is that true?
It's stressful, but I'll tell you from my experience, real estate is its own kind of stress, and it's a completely different way. But yeah, I went in the Air Force when I was 19. Kind of got inspired by somebody who was going in to serve in a Desert Storm, and I was like, oh, that'll be a way that I can go to school, take care of myself, you know, get off of mom and dad's house, and they're helping me out. But it was a way that I could take care of myself. And what I told my recruiter was I didn't want a job where I'd be working in the office. And then one of the things that always is said when people come to visit an air traffic control tower, because that's what I ended up was in a tower, they would say, this is the best office anywhere because you're up above everyone and, you know, you have the best view. So,
yeah, that's true.
But
down on everybody.
Looking down on everyone. So I served in the Air Force for 5 years and then stayed at home to have my family. Ended up with 4 kids and in northern Utah where there were not 1 but 2 towers where I could work at, and I ended up at Ogden in 2009 and just helped me get some of my confidence back, kind of coming home from being in a mom space and being married to somebody who wasn't letting me just kind of make my own decisions and my own choices and really controlling environment. So having that air traffic job to fall back on helped bring that confidence back. And part of the process post-divorce was, what do I want to do now? Because all my friends said, you know, oh, you can do anything you want now. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went back to thinking, when's the last time I kind of made those decisions just for me? And that was when I went in the Air Force. And one of the reasons why I went in was to get my degree.
So you went in after you had your kids?
I did what?
You went in the Air Force after you had your children?
No, I went in when I was 19.
Oh, yeah.
I stayed in for 5 years and then
got it.
And then it was about 12 years or so while I stayed home with them.
Okay.
And then ended up in northern Utah and needed to help contribute to my family. So, you know, that was the family decision was for me to go back to work. And it worked out really well for me in the aspect that I kind of got a chance to find myself again and think about what was right for me and where I want it to be. And what I realized was that job wasn't the right place for me. But until I could figure out where the right place was, it was a good place to be and figure it out. So I went back to school and I, you know, was back in the good old days of Facebook being kind of new, but I shared a post of a friend of mine that was in real estate and she was kind of in fix and flips and she was getting rid of one of those places that wasn't going to be the right one for them. And I thought, you know, that might work for my friend that I worked with. So I shared it with him and she was very, you know, thankful that I did that. And, you know, I was just an acquaintance of hers, but I just said, that's okay. I love helping people out and I love real estate. And she's like, you should come work with me. And I was like, I can't do that. No. I'm now a divorced mom, living, working, taking care of my family. And I was going to school full time. And I just said, I can't do that. And the thing that she said to me that makes a big difference, and I hope that someone who hears this that makes a difference for, was, why not? If you love it and you want to do that and you've always wanted to do this, why not?
I agree.
So I did. And it's a little, I feel like I've come so far in 5 years that, if we can share our message with other people and encourage them and give them some hope, that kind of no matter where you are, if you want to be somewhere else, that you can do it.
Yes.
And it might be a process that's different for everyone, but that's what I've learned more than anything is to decide what you want and to make it happen.
I love it. So you've done real estate for 5 years.
Yep, January 29th, it'll be 5 years, so almost.
Why do you feel like that you've had the successes that you've had?
Well, and that's a good question, Holly. When I worked at the tower and all of these people knew me because I had that job for 7.5 years, they were like, why are you going to be in real estate? I know so many people in real estate, basically telling me you're going to fail. But I was undeterred because I was convinced that I was going to just be different than the vast majority. And I didn't know how everyone else did business. I just knew I was going to take care of people the best that I could. And, just be myself with them, be the best at my job that I could be, but make such a difference and really be there for people. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I feel like when I look back on things was positivity, having positive words, not knowing, like I didn't know to doubt myself when I was a little kid. So over the last 7 or 8 years, that's what I've learned is go back when you were a little kid and why did you do those things? Why weren't you afraid? What did you want to do? And I had my grandmother in my life was such a powerful, positive force for me. And, when I tell people I was in the military, they're so surprised because there's all kinds of ladies that go in the Air Force. And, I'm not a real, rough and tumble kind of lady, but I just felt like that was a way for me to do it. And I just didn't know any better to have a fear that I couldn't do it.
Yeah. And
so after going through that divorce and trying to figure myself out again, I just went back to that age where, okay, well, this is what you wanted to do and you did it. Now what do you want to do? And just do it. And so kind of just having the courage to go, even if now as adults, we know better and we have these fears, but just to kind of put them aside and move forward regardless.
I love what you said about you went back to you as a child when you felt like, for you, that was when you felt unstoppable, when you felt you didn't have all this other things clouding your judgment and everything else. And when I do personality profiling, I always say, answer the questions as your younger self, even though some of the questions apply to maybe an adult person, answer as your child self would answer them, because that's when we're not, we don't have all the influences, because we learn the behavior we have. We learn to live and adapt as we get older. And so I love that you said that, because it's so true. As a child, we have that innocence, and that must have been your childhood for you, I'm guessing, just by you saying that, couldn't have been that bad. If that's where you wanted to go, that's good, because not everybody could say that. There's a lot of people that would never want to make a decision based on what they were living in their childhood, if you think
Right.
I don't know, maybe I'm totally off base there, but it just seems like that was a good place for you to go. So I love the positivity that and the customer service that you wanted to you didn't know what it looked like to be a real estate agent. You just knew how you wanted to treat people. And you know what? Everybody just needs kindness, right? Like
Right.
kindness and loyalty are my two trigger heart virtues that are way above my values for me. And when you know what those are for you, there's a little exercise that I've learned how to do to get those heart virtues and figure out what they are for you.
Oh,
And when you
nice.
know what they are, you can base any life decision based on that. But those are when I figured out those, you know how to lead, better. And so I love that, just, that being positive for you. So let's talk about like what was the lesson maybe around something like that, maybe around your divorce, because divorces are kind of negative, unfortunately. And
Right.
what do you think of that? Like what kept you through that?
I just got to a point where we moved a lot so that he could further his work experience and, just skills. And so moving a lot, I would go to a new place, have a new group of friends or ladies, and basically there was one or two people that I would really connect with and I'd be able to confide in them. And, I put myself on their side, in their shoes, and you can't really tell someone what to do, but you can be there for them. You can be a friend, you can be a listener. And that's what they were for me. I see now, because I'm like, why did they let me do this for so long? But what they did for me was just be there for me and listen. And I had to figure out for myself. So I kept myself in that environment for so long because of the moves. I mean, not for so long because of moves, but because I just eventually came across a friend who I had confided in, and they, in a conversation, it was, hey, this is what I see. I see that you're standing in the doorway of ending this relationship or this marriage, and that you're afraid, and so you've literally been on the doorstep. And I was there for 5 years. I didn't know how to have that conversation with him, with my husband at the time. I didn't know how to tell him how I was feeling. I was just going forward for the kids and trying to make it and hoping things would change. And that wasn't happening. But this other friend who had been through that had that conversation with me, and it was similar to the real estate conversation. But he had just said, what's the worst thing that will happen if you make that decision? If you chose to be divorced, what's the worst thing that would happen? And being able to think about that and write that down. And then what are some positive things that could come from this? And be able to entertain that thought. What might be the great things that could happen? And you think, how can something great come from going through a divorce? But, eventually the conversation with the spouse was, I really feel like we've gone as far as we can as individuals together, and that I can't grow anymore here. The way that we've gone and what we've tried, there were too many things keeping us just where we were. And what I wanted more than anything was just to feel alive again. And that's.
Did you feel like you lost 100 pounds?
About 175, but.
I mean, because I remember that. I remember when you made decisions or finally, got it off your chest, whatever it is. Oh, the weight off your shoulders, everything just, like, for you listeners listening, if you've never experienced that and you're struggling with a decision that's a big one, or maybe, because you're not living in your authentic self if you're living a lie. If your feelings are, being held back, like the communication's huge. And I think it's interesting that you waited 5 years. The fact that you said that, I'm surprised actually, because you seem like such an action taker, and that probably learned that,
Mm-hmm.
But me, I'm like, nope. I mean, for you listeners that are listening, like I'm not always been open, but I literally have been married 4 times. I know. But I've been married to this one longer than the other 3 put together, and I haven't now. But it's just those choices. But I always came to that conclusion quickly. Like when I knew I was done, intuitively, I was done. And so when women come and they're struggling with that, so when you said 5 years, I'm oh my gosh, I wouldn't even be on this planet if I had to wait 5 years being as miserable as I always felt, So
Yeah.
it's interesting. So if there's decisions that need to be made or things you need to be dealt, even with friendships and stuff, like, don't you think, like, if you just do it? And I've learned, I always want to, like, peacemaker, I want to be kind. But it's like, sometimes when you're feeling it, you just need to do it and figure it out later, just make the decision of what you're going to do and do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think no matter what the decision is, whatever's hard for you, I've worked with a mentor, and she's a Procter & Gallagher consultant. And one of the things that we talk about in there is the terror barrier.
Yeah.
So essentially, I had making the decision to get divorced this huge insurmountable wall that I couldn't overcome. Or, if you hear the story about a fly who's up against the glass and, if you just went 2 inches to the left, the door is open, you can just go right through it. It's similar, but, whether it's with speaking or, speaking in front of someone else or meeting new people. And even for myself, I met Holly in person at a big convention for real estate agents. And I felt like the small fish in the big pond where I am at home. I'm more like the person who knows everyone. And so it was awkward for me to go into this big group of people and not know everyone. And so I have to face my little terror barrier all the time. And
if it scares you, that's the whole reason you should do it.
Yeah. So, and I'm grateful for it because we got a chance to connect there and make a face-to-face connection. And there's so much good that comes from facing our fears. And
yeah,
that's what I want every woman to know. And part of what I won't forget, and one of the reasons I have them on my ears today, but on my necklace it's a little heart on a key. But I tend to wear hearts because I always want to remember why I started in real estate, and it was to ensure that anybody who came to me and chose to work with me had the best experience that they could have, and that they knew they were getting a good deal, they were buying the right house for them or selling their house for the right price. It sounds but I feel like that didn't happen for me. I was just a number for my agent, and I don't want people to feel that way. And so that's why I wear my little hearts and keep my heart in my business, because I feel like
your heart, not your dollar signs, and that makes all the difference.
I think it does.
It really does, because to me, if you're concerned about building the relationship over the money comes. Like, it really will. And so many people just don't trust that and believe that, but that's because they're not heart-centered, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of I'm a real estate broker as well, just for listeners that don't know that. So I get it. Like, I've been in real estate for 14 years, so I know I've dealt with a lot of them, and they give us such a bad name, and it's like, wow, how can we bring the heart back? And I do love EXP we're both with. That's how we met. I love that they brought the heart back. Their core values are my values, don't you think?
Right.
They just have and the agents own the company, so that brings heart to it right there. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good company. So find an EXP agent wherever you live, or call me or Annette, and we'll give you a referral to an EXP agent, because if you're going to buy some real estate, that company, people that go there, if not, they get weeded out quickly, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
They don't stay long in the company if they're not heart-centered, because it's not a match. Like, the vibration levels are not the same, and if they're not, they leave. So I love that about EXP. It was a good move. And I just remembered, you're not there anymore.
That's okay. That's not because of the values. That's okay.
That's not because of what I just said. I know that there's a
story. It was something totally different, but that's one thing over the last year. Even with brokerages, I had to people are like, well, why did you move? Why did you do this? But it's because of making those decisions that took me 5 years to make before. Now, I, like you said, now when you know it's not right, or you need to do something different, you do it more quickly. So I don't consider it failing, but being able to make that decision quickly and say, I need to put myself in a better place.
Yeah.
Whether it's work, personal, it's just, it can be in any aspect of our lives. And
absolutely. And I know you moved with your team.
Yeah.
So I like, oh, I totally forgot that. I don't know why.
It's a loyalty thing. It was a loyalty thing.
Oh, no, totally. No, totally.
That's
I
okay.
totally forgot
We're
that.
gonna
But
do great
it
things.
doesn't matter. You still can connect with Annette on real estate in any state, wherever you're listening to this, because, real estate agents can refer. We all know people we can connect you to anywhere. So, right.
Well, that's kind of the beauty of it. I felt like for a little while, oh, my place of impact where I can help people is kind of small, being in like just a couple of counties. But really, I mean, I've lived in Missouri, I've lived in Nevada, I've lived in Alaska. I mean, I know people kind of everywhere. And so, if people remember that, there's the potential that I can help them is actually big.
Oh, definitely.
So it's kind of fun.
But when I don't know somebody in an area and somebody wants a connection, I do the research for them because I have that relationship built with them and I want to make sure they're taken care of. I usually actually have a conversation with the agent before I'll refer them, because don't you feel like we can ask questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can fill it out for them ahead of time to know, because there's certain things that they can say or do that you're like, I wouldn't want my referral going there, because we want to take care of our people.
Absolutely.
Definitely. The heart's there, right? Yeah, for sure. Yes. Well, I love how heart-centered you are. You definitely bring a lot, and you have a lot of great knowledge and expertise. And so we're going to post your information and how they can get a hold of you. And of course, you'll be in the 40/40 books, so they'll be able to get that and read on there a little bit more about you. Anything else you want to share, just in closing, that you want to share with the listeners?
Oh, I told Holly before we started that I just wanted to kind of talk from a place like I would talk to my girls, and they're 15 and 22 right now, and just, the sky's the limit, and just don't limit yourself. Do not limit yourself. When you say the sky's the limit, it's really unlimited. So, and I can apply that to myself too. Don't think small, think huge, and to go for it, because it benefits everyone if you're being your best and you're pushing yourself and opening yourself up to all those new connections and experiences. Not only helps me, it helps the person I'm with, helps the person I connect with next. It's this ripple that never ends. And so, don't limit yourself.
Yeah, well, you are a true success, and you've done so many great things in your life, and I can't wait to see what else in the future will hold for you, and you just keep trucking, right?
Thanks, Holly.
All right, everybody have a great day, and thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on another day of the podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Prosperity Profiles Podcast, sponsored by Prosperity Profilers, LLC, helping you look prosperous, feel prosperous, and be prosperous. We hope you enjoyed our time together, and we'll visit again soon. You can learn more about Prosperity Profilers by going to hollyporter.com.